If you have ever been told that you have to go through life suffering from foot pain, our next guest says that couldn't be further from the truth.
That's right, and here to discuss the power of podiatry, how pain is treated, and why you should see a specialist is Dr. David Hatch from the Sonoran Foot and Ankle Institute. Doctor, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure. So the field of podiatry and that medicine is fascinating because it's ever changing, and you're part of that new sort of wave of doctors that are really helping it move in that direction. So how has it changed in recent decades?
Well, historically, so if we were to go back maybe even 150 years, podiatry didn't exist, a lot like most of the other medical specialties. And in fact, if you needed any foot care, you would go to a barber, and there were barber surgeons who would take care of your feet for you. And eventually that changed into a field called chiropody. Perhaps your grandmother or so had a chiropodist that treated some bunions, hammer toes, a little more complicated, but now podiatrists really focus on everything foot and ankle. We get surgically trained and qualified to treat almost any pathology that you can find in the ankle and foot nowadays.
And you were born and raised here in Arizona, and you did your residency here in Tucson, and that's awesome that you stayed.
Yeah.
But you must see different types of problems with people here in our area because most of us wear sandals like 85% of the year. Is that true?
That is true, myself included. So I was born and raised in Phoenix. I lived my life in sandals. My wife thinks that my feet look different from hers. She's from the Northwest, and because I've been in sandals. But there are things to be aware of that could potentially harm us if we're in sandals too much. In particular, a foot that needs some support. Most flip-flops don't offer any.
Right.
Now, luckily, there are some that are available that can really help provide some support and are actually comfortable in the long run. Something that isn't thought of very often, particularly in Arizona, if you're in the sun and you're slathering on that suntan or the sunscreen, usually the feet are missed.
That's right.
So if you're walking around in sandals, remember to apply sunscreen to your feet. The skin on the top of the foot is very delicate, can be damaged easily. And so in my practice and others in the Southwest, it's very common to actually see skin condition caused by sun damage in the feet.
It's a very good reminder. And of course, if you get a sunburn and sun damage on your feet, that hurts. But let's talk about the pain inside the foot. A lot of people might think, well, isn't foot pain just a normal part of life? What do you have to say to that?
Well, yeah, it is, but it doesn't have to be. So the foot is very complicated.
Yeah.
Within the foot itself, there are between the two of them, over 52 bones, 60 joints, and hundreds of ligaments and tendons that all have to work together to get you from point A to point B. And very often, you encounter something unsuspected coming from point A or B, and it can cause you foot pain. Sometimes there are things that we do to ourselves as well. An example is obesity, diabetes, smoking. But as we go through life, even if we don't have any of those conditions, it's very common to also get arthritis just from living and walking and playing sports and things like that, or other illnesses, inflammatory arthritis. So the point is, the message is, a lot of things can really happen to the foot, but you don't have to live with the pain. Most foot conditions can actually be treated relatively simply and effectively. And if you're suffering with foot pain, seek help. It might be easier than you think to actually find some relief.
So let's say somebody went to a podiatrist like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they were getting answers that they couldn't really do anything about it. Are there new things just relatively recently that have changed?
Well, that's a really good question. Podiatry, we're very niche. So we like to stick with what has been tried and proven to be true. And I think probably myself, along with other people who I've trained with, we're exposed a lot to research, to new modern techniques, new thought. And so you may very well get a completely different answer by seeing myself or going to another podiatrist. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you are part of that new generation, like we're saying. So how do you see things differently than, say, our grandmothers? What did you say? What was the
chiropodist.
Chiropodist.
Yeah, what a word, huh? Well, podiatrist is no beautiful word either. But so the difference in training now is that every podiatry school is a 4-year school.
Okay.
My school in particular, my cohorts also went on to become anesthesiologists, orthopedic surgeons. So I trained classically in medicine and specialized in the foot. And now every podiatrist who graduates and gets a license also has to have completed 3 years of surgical training. And that's different from in the past. Yeah.
Well, we all know that relative. I know my dad had foot issues, you know, his feet, he had plantar fasciitis, and he always had issues with that. So you don't have to live with it, is the point. We all have family members, whether, you know, they're our parents or even ourselves.
Right. My brother on his feet with his work all day long, and it seems like it will never go away.
Messages, you don't have to deal with it. Go see Dr. David Hatch. You're the new generation that's going to help us with something that's important to everyday life, is walking on our feet. So Doctor, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
To learn more or to book an appointment at Sonoran Foot and Ankle Institute, call 520-328-5419 or visit sonoranfootandankle.com.